let's pick up the pace a bit as we check out an event featuring not just show cars, but all variety of drag cars. It's the East Coast Drag Times Hall of Fame Racers Reunion, and it's time for the Lokar Car Show.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Lokar Car Show. This time coming to you from the little town of Henderson, North Carolina. And this is Lokar Car Show's exclusive coverage of one of the greatest gathering of custom car and drag racing machinery on the Eastern Seaboard. This is the 12th annual East Coast Drag Times Hall of Fame induction ceremonies and the reunion car show that goes with it that brings us some of the most spectacular machines on display year in and year out. Now, the vehicle you're looking at here is indeed a piece of drag racing history, so much so that it will be inducted into that East Coast Drag Times Hall of Fame this year. It's the Blue Angels Massillon, Ohio-based twin-engine, front-engine gas-burning dragster that ran in the early 1960s and indeed was a national record holder. But one thing that's the most amazing about this particular vehicle is that it was completely built by a group of guys who created a car club in the early 1950s and named it after the infamous Flying Formation team. Now, one of the best-known members of the Blue Angels Car Club is past East Coast Drag Times Hall of Fame inductee, the one and only Dave Koffel, one of the great engineering minds in the history of drag racing. But I gotta say, back in 1952 when this group was formed, how old were you?
I would have been 17.
This has to be an amazing moment to now see that your buddies in the Blue Angels are getting in as well.
Oh yeah, and many of them have worked very, very hard on this whole project, including my son Scott. We have like third generation people involved here. Unfortunately, the fellow that was really the prime mover of this whole thing, Ralph Henderson, died about 6 or 7 years ago now. And in the end, he was the mechanical genius, as it were, that guided the whole thing.
Now, the car club phenomenon, which is pretty much a lost concept on today's youth, was just a bunch of kids that got together and shared their passion for hot rodding and hopping up cars.
And their dollars.
And yes.
It was financially motivated that they could.
Yeah, it was pooling your resources.
Well, sure. Yeah. We have people from California and Florida and that were all part of this deal that have come back for the thing.
Believe it or not, in 1956, this team traveled 4,700 miles in that one season and won 22 titles with a young kid named Dave Koffel right there all the way. You know, the East Coast Drag Times Hall of Fame and reunion doesn't just include drag racing machinery. There's 1.5 miles of street rods and high-performance cars lining Main Street through Henderson, North Carolina. And I'll tell you, you'll find some amazing stuff, including 2 of the most magnificent pieces of Ford equipment we've seen in years. Identical 1961 Ford Starliners, one owned by Larry and Patty Hill, the other by Zach Straits, both out of Virginia. Now remember, the 61 Starliner was the car that Ford brought into the high-performance wars to battle the then dominant wedge-powered Chryslers. Let's start with Larry's, though. You'll notice it's not the 390 cubic inch Ford power plant that you've come to know and love in these cars. It's a real live, honest-to-goodness, single overhead cam Ford 427 engine, carbureted, still a gas burner, one of the original Holman and Moody prototype Cammers. Larry, so the engine came first.
Yeah, I'd actually had another 61 Starliner that was original. And a gentleman made me an offer on the thing. He had 2 of these Camry engines, and I ended up with the money plus the engine. We did find out that it was original prototype engine from Holman and Moody. It was stamped onto the block. It says HM 1971 number 6. So it was number 6 engine that they built.
There aren't many carbureted gas cameras out there, especially none that are roadworthy. How is this thing with its chain drive on the road?
Very calm, very honestly. I mean, when you start it up, it sounds like thunder, but I mean, it don't load, jump, nothing. It's just smooth as it can be.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Now, in comparison to Zach's car, which is an original 390 car, there doesn't appear to be virtually any difference between these cars as far as interiors and stuff are concerned.
No, I actually cheated a little bit. It's 1960 interior.
No kidding.
Yeah, I liked it better, and actually when I bought the car about 15 years ago, that's the style it had in it. So you never know. Ford did some weird things, and maybe it might have been that way, but I won't go argue the point. I just liked it better.
One of the things about his car, it's got a 200-mile-an-hour speedometer.
What?
It's a real 200-mile-an-hour speedometer in a 1961 Starline.
Where did you find it? What's the story?
actually Canadian. It's kilometers.
I gotcha.
But it doesn't say mile per hour anywhere on it, so I felt liberty to, yeah, I could say it's a real 200 miles.
Well, here's the big question. Did you recalibrate it for miles per hour?
Yes, I did.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Where'd you ever find that gear?
Good old eBay.
The 61 Starliners are a vanishing breed. They were big cars. Not too many people have concerned themselves with this particular performance car as opposed to all the other options that can be.
This is a 390 401 horse. It's a deal where you could buy from the factory a 375 horse motor, 390, came with a single 4-barrel, but the 3 deuces came in the trunk. And
that's right. It was not a dealer installed option, but it was a dealer delivered option.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then the dealer would install them for you on the car, or you could take it directly to home in a Moody for the small price of $395, and they'd put them on for you.
Sitting in the back seat of Zach's 61 Starliner is a trophy, a little drag strip in Louisa County, Virginia. Did you used to race at Louisa?
No, I didn't. I was very close friends with Jack Todd and George Roller, who was...
They race there all the time.
Right, they were the Double Trouble cars, and that's one of the Double Trouble winning trophies from 1961.
Well, there you have it, folks. Two of the most amazing examples of 1961 Ford Starliner metal we've ever seen. Two completely different versions that are almost identical. Stay with us. When we return to Henderson, North Carolina, we'll have more of these amazing machines here at the 12th Annual East Coast Drag Times Hall of Fame Induction Ceremony and Reunion Car Show.
This edition of the Lokar Car Show is being brought to you by Lokar Performance Products. Quality, plain and simple. ARP, the world leader in fastener technology. TRD Sparks, discount online TRD OEM performance parts and accessories store. And by VR12, ultimate cooling system protection.
Welcome back to the Lokar Car Show, coming to you from the heart of Henderson, North Carolina, for the 12th Annual East Coast Drag Times Hall of Fame induction ceremonies, and of course this gigantic car show known as the Drag Times Reunion. Just keeps getting bigger no matter what the weather.
Rain or shine.
Rain or shine.
Right. And it stopped raining, and we got more people coming. Thank goodness it didn't rain out.
Right behind you is a group that a lot of people are so pleased that you decided to put into the Hall of Fame this year, the Golden Commandos. You, being a Mopar racer for years and years and years, had to look at them as one of your heroes.
I did, and I thought they deserved recognition. They were on the Plymouth side, and we honored the Dodge side a few years ago, the Ram Chargers,
right.
So I wanted to do this, and we were real honored to have them as part of our Hall of Fame.
Well, I won't tell anybody that you're kind of a Plymouth person rather than a Dodge person.
Well, I really am.
In the early 1960s, a group of Chrysler engineers created the car club known as the Golden Commandos. It had more than just about any other team to do with the evolution of super stock machines from Detroit into the factory experimental cars and later funny cars. In fact, the last car the team campaigned was a fiberglass-bodied 1967 Barracuda funny car. But this little machine, an F-stock 1964 Plymouth Barracuda with the venerable 273 cubic inch small block V8 engine, might be their greatest accomplishment ever.
That's right. This was an important car for the Plymouth and Chrysler Corporation. If you think of the time, they were trying to compete against Camaros and Mustangs.
Yeah.
And to bring this car forth to the track and set some of the national records that they did with this factory stock is really an important piece of history for Plymouth and the Golden Commandos.
Other than the Ford Mustang, this car was really the precursor to the pony car movement. And when Chrysler came out with the 273 cubic inch, a lot of people said it's not the best engine for this platform.
Well, not the best engine, but it turned out to be a high performer in this car particularly. It set 3 national records and won many match races and really swayed the public to buy Plymouth and Chrysler product.
One thing about this car that was interesting is the fact that this car couldn't get out of the 17s in bone stock trim. They paired 3 seconds off this car, I believe, for the first time out.
They actually did, and to Ray Colby and the Golden Commandos, my dad, John Delafor, and all the others, the work they did, the innovation, the leading edge material and things they did back then really made a difference.
Now, this particular machine was found and restored by Bruce Lindstrom. Where did he find it?
Well, Bruce found it in Kansas, out in a farmer's field. Knew that it was some kind of famous car, and to Bruce's credit, he took the time, researched, and built the thing back to its original, even to the paint job, the sponsors.
I will point out the bronze color in this was kind of a top secret blend of paint, and he somehow managed to match it up.
The guys are a little older in the club now, but they haven't forgotten everything, so the secrets are being shared, and they're having a lot of fun with it today here.
Whenever you can see a reflection this perfect in black paint, you know you found a winner. This is a 1969 Buick Riviera Grand Sport. It came original with a 430 cubic inch single 4-barrel Buick engine made over 360 horsepower and was equipped with Buick's version of the Turbo 400 automatic transmission. But what's amazing about this car is that it's got 45,000 original miles.
Well, actually, my father had a blue one, and we dated on it. So that was my passion for wanting it.
Well, this car was a special order. Its original owner picked it up with a variety of missing power options.
It does not have power windows, it doesn't have power brakes, it doesn't have cruise control, it does have air conditioning because the guy bought it originally in Illinois. I'm the second owner. He special ordered it, so GM put his name on the dash on a little plaque.
The Riviera, of course, was more of a luxury car than a performance car, but it did have plenty of power. Problem was, it also had plenty of bulk, right up around 4,500 pounds for this thing. But one look at the paint and finish on this car, and you understand that even if it's a complete restoration, it is done by a master.
It's a place called Breelove Collision in Providence, North Carolina.
Amazingly large fenders, doors, the hood, all huge pieces of metal. And in order to get this car as straight as it is, one has to take extra care. But then to make the decision to spray it black, it had better be perfect. And this one, for all intents and purposes, is. Stay with us. When we come back, you'll see more outrageous equipment from here in Henderson, North Carolina. Welcome back, everybody, to Henderson, North Carolina, and the Lokar Car Show's exclusive coverage of the 12th annual East Coast Drag Times induction ceremony for their Hall of Fame. And if you love the original nitro burners, then you'll be stunned by this showpiece. This is the special edition front-engine top fuel dragster driven by Jim Walther out of Paynesville, Ohio, who, by the way, went on to win the 1972 NHRA Top Fuel World Championship. Not with this car, but with a later rear engine model. And nobody knows better than a man who's been inducted into multiple halls of fame just what this car represents in the evolution of top fuel dragsters. Jim, you were one of the last to drive a real live front engine nitro burning top fueler.
Yes, I was, and I'll tell you what, the back motored cars are fun to drive, but I got to tell everybody that at nighttime driving one of these has got to be the highlight of my life. I don't think you could get any better ride than one of these things at nighttime, sitting behind it with the flames and the unknowns. I believe that's part of the mystique of this whole deal, was the unknowns of what could happen to you or what could go wrong. But back motor cars are a lot safer, and I got to say that. And I've been on fire, I've crashed them. Those aren't your best rides when that happens, but I just think that these were the pinnacle of drag racing right here.
The exhaust header flames would literally form walls on either side of the car, almost back to where the driver's sitting. The supercharger and fuel injector obscured your forward vision. So the question that any kid's going to ask is, how did you drive it?
Well, you weren't going straight anyway, to be very honest about it. You kind of were going either left or right and kind of looking around the side of the injectors in the blower all the time. If you nipped a piston and you got oiled in, and you always had time for about one wipe on your goggles, and the second time, you better shut it off. And when you can't see where you're going at 230, it gets a little dicey.
Well, don't think for a minute that these old guys are stuck in the past. Jim Walther is negotiating a deal with legendary Top Fuel pilot Pat Dakin, who's also from the Buckeye State, to actually make a couple of laps in a modern-day Top Fueler.
I'm 74 years old, but I don't think I'm too old to step on the pedal.
In the 1960s, the husband and wife team of Jim and Allison Lee out of Virginia campaigned the Great Expectations Top Fuel Dragster. This particular car set the NHRA Top Fuel world record at 6.53 seconds with driver Tom Rayleigh in an era when that was as quick as anybody had ever gone. But what about the restoration of these machines?
I was very fortunate when I found the car. Even though it was in a pretty bad condition, it was fairly complete, and the guy that I got it from had a lot of spare parts, and they were period correct.
What one piece drove Brian Beatty out of his mind?
Paying for it? No. Actually, I sent the car out to California, and Bruce Dita did the restoration, and he took it under his wing and made it as absolutely perfect as it could be. At that time, he was right next to Don Long's shop, who built the chassis, and he had a copy of the original invoice, so he was able to find all what was on the car at the time. So I was very fortunate to find the original car.
The venerable 1956 Chevrolet sedan delivery, a utilitarian vehicle with one purpose: deliver stuff. John Wright owns this magnificent example of a 56 Chevy sedan delivery. But if you're an old drag racing fan, you'll recognize this guy, Wayne Jessel, who back in the 1960s was the driver of the most notorious sedan delivery Chevrolet, sponsored by Yoo-Hoo chocolate drinks. Where did you find this car?
I bought it from Gene Moray.
The old B. Alder guy?
Yes. Gene restored it about 28 years ago. He had the body off the frame. It's lacquer paint.
When he came up to you, what was the first thing he said?
I didn't say anything first. He said, "Do you want to sell it?"
Now be honest, when was the last time you saw a 56 sedan delivery in this condition?
1956, that's about it, because everything that we built came out of a junkyard, and we'd have to restore it ourselves or, do the complete restoration on it to make it a junior stocker.
What do you want to do with this car?
We've been busy doing our Bonneville land speed racing and what have you, but I've been asked so many times about doing a replication of our old sedan delivery that we raced back in the 60s and was classified in the NADA book as a truck. You could get the hydromatic transmission in a GMC truck. So you were allowed to put, let's say, a Corvette type 265 engine in it with the 4-speed hydromatic transmission, which was a great advantage back then because it was a 4-speed with a very, very, very low first gear.
All right, so we can safely say that if the price hasn't gone completely out of range because of this interview, this could be a nostalgia junior stocker for Wayne Jessel's return.
That's correct.
It's amazing. This guy showed up with what he thought was a really cool car. Now he's leaving with a bunch of money, more than he thought he was going to leave with.
Or a red Roadster.
Oh, well, we might work a swap here.
Yeah.
Because he has a red 32.
I know that. And
just make sure it's money and the Roadster. Stay with us. When we return to Henderson, North Carolina, we'll have more of these amazing machines here at the 12th Annual East Coast Drag Times Hall of Fame Induction Ceremony and Reunion Car Show.
This edition of the Lokar Car Show is being brought to you by Lokar Performance Products. Quality, plain and simple. B&M Performance. Quality performance products that work. JD Wheels. Serving customers since 1993. Car Capsule. Protecting vehicles for over 20 years. And by Zebros Racing. Demanding higher standards.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Lokar Car Show's exclusive coverage of the East Coast Drag Times Hot Rod Reunion and Hall of Fame induction. Now, so far, we've seen drag racing machines and street vehicles, but we're going to combine the two with this absolutely amazing one-of-a-kind machine. Now, we're not trying to fool anybody here. This is a fiberglass-bodied 1934 Chevrolet, but this gentleman and his lovely wife have been a part of the drag racing scene on the Eastern Seaboard for decades and decades. And believe it or not, the same vehicle with which they campaigned up and down the Eastern Seaboard is now their street machine. The legendary Buck Todd and his wife Diane. Before I say anything else, Diane, tell everybody why the hood on this car is so long.
Because it used to have a motor with a blower.
And what's it got now?
It's got 2 V6 motors.
2 back-to-back V6 motors. Buck Todd, what were you thinking?
Well, sometimes you have to listen to the wife. Well, we want to or not, we have to listen to the wife. After 48 years, I listen.
What made you just turn the race car into a street car? Most people would have started another project.
I have another race car, and I had it around. It was sitting there, so my wife and I talked about it, so we went at it. She picked all the colors, the whole thing about the car. It was mostly her idea. I just done the work.
Was it your idea to run the 2 motors?
Yes.
No kidding?
Yes, sir.
You didn't tell her you're insane?
No, she wasn't insane, because I was thinking something like that too, But we generally think alike. After 48 years, we almost tell each other what they're thinking about.
231 cubic inch General Motors V6s. How are the engines connected?
With a clutch and a shaft from the harmonica bouncer through the clutch with a belt housing. I can use one motor or I can use both motors. 31 miles a gallon.
No kidding.
On one motor.
On one motor.
On one
Does it go down when you hook up the second one?
A little bit. About 26. Drove to Florida. I drove to here. I drive it every day, just about.
Since it was a race car for so many years, how is it for the drive to Florida comfort-wise?
It was very comfortable.
No kidding.
Yes, very comfortable. I enjoyed it.
How many people have come up to you and said, I want you to build me one of these?
Not really. I had a couple people want to buy it.
Oh, I see.
They don't want to build one.
They'd rather leave that risk to you and Diane.
Yes, sir. That's what we do.
The Lokar Car Show series is designed to showcase individualistic vehicles and, of course, their equally individualistic owners. In this particular case, I promise you, you won't see another one like this. And its heritage is pure race car.
This week's Lokar Lowdown. First, Brian, I want to talk about 25 years this year for Lokar.
25 years of being in business, and it's pretty cool to be to that point and see what we've built. I mean, we've got a really good brand in the marketplace and a lot of stuff out there in a lot of people's cars.
And a lot of cars sometimes change hands, go to a different guy. They've got a nice Lokar shifter in there, but it's just not quite comfortable for them. Do they have to replace the whole shifter?
No, as years have gone on, we found that it works out best to help customers out to have shift lever replacement kits now, where you can replace the entire shifter lever, but you don't have to replace the entire shifter. And we've got them available from our 6-inch levers all the way up to our 32-inch radical, which is our double bend levers.
I mean, we could have a huge table here to show all of the different ones that are available. Really, all we have to do is just go to your website.
If you go to the website and find it in our catalog as well, it's all under service parts. But we have them in the Midnight series as well as the chrome-plated levers, and they're again from 6-inch all the way up to 32.
All right, all you have to do is just, like you said, go to the website, lokar.com. You can find them on Facebook, and remember, all of Lokar products, lifetime warranty, made in the USA, and again, lokar.com.
The venerable English Ford Anglia, a 4-cylinder economy car, seated 4 human beings when it was originally produced in the United Kingdom as late as the 1960s. But it's the 1948 version that has been a mainstay with drag racing fans for decades. Here is Charles Hammack's absolutely magnificent street version. You can see the obvious race car heritage with a full tube chassis, full cockpit instrumentation and safety equipment, and of course, massive rubber and even wheelie bars. But the difference? This one's completely streetable with absolutely magnificent multi-layer paint, some tremendous fiberglass work done, including the fairing in of the headlights on the front fenders. This is one of the best examples of both show and go Anglia we've ever seen.
And finally, the Lokar Pick of the Week. This awesome automobile will be in competition for the Pick of the Year at the end of the season, a special December episode of the Lokar Car Show. What do you think will win? Stay tuned.